Last week we started with the chapter 1, and it begins with Dhritarashtra Vacha. Dhritarashtra, we saw, is a representation of ignorance. When ignorance marries the mind, which is actually capable of seeing, but has chosen not to see, Gandhari, the result is 100 negative forces, evil forces, and these are opposed by 5 virtues. But the 5 virtues win because they have Bhagwan on their side. They have surrendered to Bhagwan, and therefore they can win. The onlooker is Sanjay. It is a battle within us, and that is why the place was chosen by Bhagwan to be the battlefield of Kurukshetra, because even though we are not in an actual battle on the borders of the country or any war front, we are fighting a battle within ourselves constantly. So we are on battleground. We go to work. There sometimes there is battles. There's battles at home, and if none of these external situations are there, definitely there is a battle within that is going on between the evil forces and the good forces within us. So we saw that Dhritarashtra is very much attached to his throne and crown, which is an attachment to inert objects, which is a tamasic type of attachment arising from tamo guna, out of the 3 gunas. And his attachment to his son also is tamasic because of that. And one more reason that we say his attachment is tamasic as opposed to Arjuna's attachment, which we'll be talking about, is sattvic, is because no matter what Duryodhan had done in his life, all he had done was wrong, incorrect. His behavior was totally incorrect right from his childhood. Even in his childhood, he had tried to kill Bhima. Then he tried to kill all the brothers in Varnavrata. So all the time he had done wrong, with the culmination of demanding that Draupadi be brought into the open court and derobed. That was the climax. And all through this, Dhritarashtra had not said a word. And that is what indicates that the attachment is tamasic. If that attachment were sattvic, if there was any kind of sattva guna in Dhritarashtra, he would not have allowed his son to do so much wrong. So the takeaway for grahastha, the grahasthas who have little children, they must never condone, if the child is doing something wrong, that must never be condoned, that it's okay, is a baby. And also the children must have the habit of hearing a no. If the parents go on saying yes, 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 yes to everything that the child is saying, when the child grows up and goes out into the world, he's not going to only hear yes all the time from everybody just because the parents said. And if he's not used to hearing the word no, you can't do this, or that is not correct, you are leaving him open for sorrow. And so that's why that attachment, even to our own children, has to have sattva guna in it. Sattvic, it has to be sattvic. So that when the child is doing something wrong, you at least have, when he's small, between 6 and 16, he can be corrected. And after 16 also, you can definitely say that I don't agree with this. And as adults, they might do something wrong on their own, but at least you have given them the values. And you need not agree with what they do in their adulthood. You can say, no, you can do it, but I don't think it's correct. Don't say, yeah, that's okay, that's okay, that's okay. So that's what we saw. And then going on to verse 2 and 3, which are continuous, we saw that Duryodhan, who is now a representation of Rajasic attachment, he is attached to power and prestige. That is what Rajas will manifest into an attachment for power. He didn't care for the throne. He didn't mind that he was not sitting on the throne physically, but then he had all the power to do whatever that he wanted, because he knew as long as his father was on the throne, there was nobody to stop him. And the reason that we say that his attachment is Rajasic is because of his behavior. So in verse 2, what he has done is, He has examined the armies, which is okay. That's nothing wrong with that. But now he has stepped out of his chariot and he has gone near the Acharya, his Acharya, his teacher, because Dronacharya was the teacher for both Pandavas and Kauravas. So he has gone near the Acharya, Raja Vachanam Abravit, and he has said things, and the saying has begun with Pashaitam, which is a verb. So the protocol would be for him to, first of all, the protocol was not for him to get out of the chariot. There was no reason, because there were senior people. Bhishma was there, Dronacharya was there, Kripacharya was there. They were senior. Bhishma was the commanding officer. He would have said whatever that has to be said or done. There was no reason for Duryodhan to open his mouth. Okay, he got out of the chariot, which was wrong. Then he opened his mouth, that was also wrong. And then whatever came out of his mouth was wrong. That was incorrect. And that is what Rajas will do. Rajasic tendencies will not only push you to speak or to do, because it's active, it's dynamic, Rajasic, but you will do wrong. So you will say something which is not correct. You will say something which is out of place. And that is what it tells, it's Rajas. So this is Rajas and Tamas mixed. If Rajas was with Sattva, if there was Sattva also in there, then the Rajas will speak, the person will speak, but it won't be a wrong speech. It'll be a correct speech. That is how it works. Because understand one thing, that when we say Dhritarashtra is tamasic, it doesn't mean that he has no Sattva and no Rajas at all in him. Because in the three gunas, you can never have 0% of any one. It cannot go to zero. There has to be a percentage. All three together will be 100%. So when one particular guna is maximum, then we say it's predominance. But predominance doesn't mean 100% Rajas, 100% Tamas, 100% Sattva. It doesn't mean 100%. It's the percentage. So that's why there was a predominance of Tamas, and there was a predominance of Rajas with Duryodhan. But next in line was Tamas and then Sattva. That is what it is with Duryodhan. With Dhritarashtra, it was first Tamas, then Rajas, then Sattva. And with Arjun, it was first Rajas, means maximum Sattva, then Rajas, and then Tamas. So Duryodhan.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah.
If these three gunas are within us as part of human being, can we ever get over this inner battle?
Yes. Yeah, we can. That is the whole purpose of studying Bhagavad Gita. That is the whole purpose of studying the gunas. The reason that we explain these gunas to you is for you to go within yourself, figure out where you are at, and then try to improve. So the thing that we need to do is to increase sattva within us. That is what we need to do. So he starts his, and then when he has approached his guru, his acharya, protocol would be to say salutations, pranams, hello, hi, hello in our modern language. Instead of that, he has just begun. Look at this army. Now that itself is wrong, because was Dronacharya blind? Was he not standing there in front looking at the army? Not only that, even before the war had started, each party knew who was in the other side. Pandavas knew who was fighting for the Kauravas. Kauravas knew who was fighting for the Pandavas. So what is the point in going and telling him, look at the army? Okay, so you said, look at the army. Pandu Putranam Acharya Mahatim Chamum. Chamum is army, and it's an army consisting of 729 elephants. There's just information and nothing to do with this thing. 729 elephants, chariots, and then 2,187 horses and 3,645 soldiers. Okay, and Ashwayoni, which was the total army, is 30 times of that. So Chamum is a part of that army, or you can just say army. So he's asking him to look at the army, which was not necessary. And then Vyudham Drupada Putrena, that formation that you see, he's telling Dronacharya, has been put in place by Drupada Putra Drishtadyumna, and we were here last time. And Drishtadyumna is the commanding officer of the Pandava army, and his birth has happened to kill Dronacharya. And now Duryodhan is telling Dronacharya that your death is standing in front there, ahead of you, which Dronacharya knew the details. So as the story goes, and Tava Shishena Dhimata, it's your wise disciple only is now standing there as your death. So the point is, how does it make Dronacharya feel? First of all, he's the Acharya. Duryodhan has not given him any respect, spoken out of turn, and then ordered him. Raja Vachanam Abravit Pashetam. It's a continuous this thing. So when he is being ordered and people are standing around him, so Duryodhan can be heard by others. It's not just this, just very softly it is going on. It's going on pretty loudly, and there are people standing around. How do they feel that this student is coming and talking to the Acharya like this? So as the story goes, Drupada himself, King Drupada, who is the father of Draupadi, and Dronacharya, they were in the same Gurukul in their childhood. So this is in the past. So when they were little, they were in with the same Guru, and they were fast friends. So Dronacharya was a Brahmin boy, very poor, and Drupada was the king, like he was the prince, right? He was he was a Kshatriya, he was a prince. So he was very rich, obviously, but they were friends, they were classmates, they were friends. And in that friendship, this Drupada says, when I grow up, when I become king, I will give you half my kingdom. He says, children, okay, fine. Okay, so that said, then a lot of time, years go by, they both graduate, they both go their own ways. And even though, please understand that at those times, the Gurukuls were run by the king. So whoever came there, they had free education. So even though Dronacharya being a Brahmin and being very, very poor, he could afford the same school that the king's son was going to. It wasn't like, nowadays there's private school that only certain people can afford, and then there are public schools. Because the entire, that Gurukula, that whole institution was being supported by the king himself. Kshatriyas were supporting the Brahmins for this education purpose. So they were friends. Now years went by, they graduated, Drupad went, he became king. Dronacharya came home, he was a Brahmin, he was very, very poor. He gets married to Kripi, who is the sister of Kripacharya, who is the Kuluguru, who is the priest of the Kauravas. So anyway, and then he has one son, Ashwathama. As luck would have it, I think this is grace. So just last night, I heard this part of the story, which I had not known, which I didn't know. So I'm going to share it with you. It is in this story itself. So anyway, Dronacharya is so poor that he has no milk. He doesn't have a single cow, and he doesn't have any milk to give his son, Ashwathama, whom he's very much attached to. So what the mother was doing is that she was mixing flour. Dronacharya is Brahmin, so he would go ask for bhiksha. So he would get flour, like wheat flour or rice flour, whatever. That flour she would mix in the water, it would become white, and she would say, this is milk, and she would feed Ashwathama. And the flour had some nutrients and all that, and that's what was Ashwathama was drinking from his very childhood. So he thought that is milk. That was fine. Now is this part I heard just last night, and I thought, wow, what a coincidence. So he becomes 3, 4, 5 years, and he's drinking this milk every day, and he thinks, okay, that's milk. He gets invited to a birthday party of one of his friends, whose father is quite well off. So in the birthday party, every child that comes, they are given milk to drink, because you see, that time cows were the wealth. It wasn't like money and return. Now we have return gift and all that. It wasn't like that. So obviously, because it was a birthday party, the children were fed and they were given this milk. And Ashwathama drinks and says, this is tasting very different. It's very sweet. So he asks his friend, what is this? This is, don't you know, this is milk. He says, are you sure this is milk? He says, yeah, this is milk. So he says, okay, fine then. So he drinks, he comes home. Next day morning, his mother makes her milk and gives it to him and says, here's your milk. And he says, no, mom, I have drunk the real milk. So there are two aspects. The reason that this story was told to us yesterday was, and I want to mention it, is because the reason we don't go for liberation is because we really don't know what it really is. Like this child didn't know what real milk was. So if he doesn't know what real milk is, if I don't know what that real bliss is, I'm not going to go after it. That's why we don't have that mumukshutvam, because we don't even know what it is. How can you go after something which you don't know is existing or whatever it is? Okay, so that was the point of that. But this story, so then what happens is Ashwatthama says, this is not milk. I have drunk the real milk and come at the birthday party. So Dronacharya feels very bad, very, very bad. And his wife says, then tells him that, you know, why don't you keep saying that this Drupad is your friend, Drupad is your best friend from school. Why don't you go ask him for 1 or 2 cows? Just ask for cows for milk for Ashwatthama. Now, Dronacharya could have done that. He was a Brahmin. See, everybody's ego, how it plays, that is what we have to see. So Dronacharya was a Brahmin. There would have been absolutely nothing wrong for him to go to Drupada and say, hey, look, my son doesn't even have milk to drink. Please give me a couple of cows. He would have even maybe given him 100 or 1,000 cows also, because Drupada was the king. He would have given him. No, but Dronacharya says, no, no, no. Why should I go ask for Bhiksha? He's my friend. He promised me half his kingdom. So now I'm going to go ask for half that kingdom. This is how ego plays. Okay. His Swadharma was Brahmin. He should have asked for Bhiksha. So he goes and he asks, he says, of course, he welcomes him, Drupad welcome. Oh, my friend, my childhood friend, come, let's eat this, that, everything. And then he says, how are things with you? He says, you know, when we were children, you promised me half the kingdom. I've come to take half that kingdom. And Drupad says, are you kidding me? I was just a child. He says, you're a Brahmin. If you want cows, I will give you as many cows as you want. You can take for your son. I have no problem. But half a kingdom? No way. So Dronacharya feels hurt, doesn't say anything. He comes home. Years go by, and there's another story about that, but I'm not going to go into that. So what happens is then he becomes the teacher for the Pandavas. Bhishma brings him in. He knows that he's a very, very good teacher. He was very good at his job. So Bhishma brings him in to train the Pandavas and the Kauravas, and then they graduate. And when they graduate, you have to give Guru Dakshina. That is the importance of Dakshina. They say that unless you give Dakshina to the Guru, that knowledge doesn't actually come to you. So we'll see about Krishna also giving his Guru Dakshina. That will come as well. So the Pandavas and the Kauravas, they ask Dronacharya, what would you like as Guru Dakshina? So he says, I want Drupad captured and brought in front of me alive. So Duryodhan says, yes, I can do that right away, no problem, because Duryodhan Rajas is there. So before Yudhishthir is Sattva, so before Yudhishthir can think and speak, Duryodhan just says, and then he has got his 99 brothers. Then not only that, he goes to his father. He says, I want your army because I want to go defeat Drupada, because I want to bring Drupada to as Guru Dakshina to this thing, to my Guru. He goes with the whole army and Drupad defeats him. He comes back with his brothers. He comes back. No, we could not. Then Yudhishthir says, if you give us permission, we will go. So he says, we 5 brothers will go. Dronacharya says, don't you want to go to your uncle and get the army? Like Dronacharya, he says, no, this is Guru Dakshina. I cannot bring the army. I cannot take help from my uncle. Because this is Guru Dakshina you're asking of us. We 5 have to do it. We cannot take help. So Dronacharya says, okay, I have trained you guys, but make sure he doesn't die. You must not kill him. You must capture him alive. I want him alive. Okay, fine. They don't know. These kids, the Pandavas and Kauravas, don't know what has happened before, because that has happened before, that story between those two. Fine. They go 5 brothers, they defeat him, they capture him, they bring him in front of Dronacharya. Now, again, Dronacharya could have said, okay, you know, just here's back, because once they capture the king, that means the kingdom also became theirs. And when the kingdom became theirs, they gave it to Dronacharya, of course, because that's whom they had done it for. Now, Dronacharya could have just said, okay, take your kingdom and go. I've made my point. No, he had to rub it in. You didn't even give me half the kingdom. Now I'm giving you your whole kingdom back as Bhiksha. Finished. How each one is feeding order. Now, Drupad keeps quiet, goes home, takes his kingdom, goes back to his palace. But in his mind, he says, I'm going to avenge this. He doesn't tell Dronacharya anything. And that's why he has Drupada. He does yajna actually. And out of the yajna first comes Draupadi. He says, what good is that girl? That girl cannot do anything. I want a boy. Then Drishtadyumna comes. And that same Drishtadyumna, he sends to Dronacharya's Gurukul for training. Because he knows Dronacharya is the best. See, if you see this Mahabharata, okay? See, Drupada had insulted Dronacharya. Okay, who is Arjun's favorite guru. Arjun was very much loving Dronacharya, but yet when he married Drupada's daughter, Draupadi he married, that was a separate issue. Everything is like, that is a separate issue. Okay, you are enemy towards my guru, but what's your daughter got to do with it? So he has won over Draupadi and he marries her. Same thing with this. Drupada's enmity is with Dronacharya, but in his mind, he also knows that Dronacharya is the best. So he sends his son to him. That's why this thy wise disciple, Tava Shishyena, Tripti, you had a question, right? How come he became? Because Dronacharya was the best in those days. He was the best. Okay, so this is this background, and that's why Drishtadyumna is standing, and that's Duryodhana is now reminding Dronacharya. Suppose maybe Dronacharya would have even forgotten because years have passed. He may have forgotten, but Duryodhana has not. And his Rajasic tendencies are making him speak something which he should not have spoken. He's saying your death is standing on the other side. How does Dronacharya feel? Because the question that is being answered is, how has Bhishma fallen? What happened? I had managed to destroy Arjuna's inspiration, and how come his inspiration has suddenly come about? Because if you see, this is a report by Sanjay that we are studying. If you see Sanjay's report, he is not saying so many chariots were killed on the first day, so many kings died, so many army died. He's not giving that sort of a report, because Sanjay has understood the meaning of that first verse. So his report is completely different. You understand? Because if question on the surface was what is happening, okay, then on the first day, this many people died. On the second day, this many people died. This many horses died. This many. That is not that report he was getting. Dhritarashtra was getting that report every day. So this is a different type of a report that is being given. And that's why that verse 1 has that other meaning. Okay. Now we go forward. 4, 5, and 6 we read together, because they are, Sanjay is now, not Sanjay, Duryodhan is naming the warriors on the Pandava side one by one. So it's just a list of, there are 17 names that he's now saying. Atra Shura Maheshwasa Bhimarjuna Samayudhi Yuyudhano Viratascha Drupadascha Maharatha Drishtaketushchekitanah Kashirajascha Viryavan Purujit Kunti Bhojascha Shaibhyascha Narapungavah Yudhamanyuscha Vikranta Uttamaujascha Viryavan Saubhadro Draupadeyascha Sarva Eva Maharathaha. Here are the heroes, mighty archers, equal in battle to Bhima and Arjuna. Yuyudhana, Virata, and Drupada, the great chariot warrior. So these are the names, and he's praising. Who praises the enemy like that? What will you yourself are praising the enemy? What effect is it going to have on your own army? Think about it. But this is what Rajas does. Rajas doesn't think. Rajoguna doesn't think. They speak first and then they think. And that's what we'll see in Duryodhana also. Sattva will think first and then speak. That's the difference, Arjun. And Tamas will not speak only. And that's what Dhritarashtra had done all his life. He had not spoken anything against Duryodhana, who was doing wrong, wrong after wrong after wrong. And that's why that attachment was tamasic. Okay, even though it's to a person. Next, drishta. So what he's also saying, equal means look at their, you know, kings who are standing. Each one is equal to Arjuna. Each one is equal to Bhima. How scary that will be. First of all, Arjuna and Bhima were the great warriors. Every other person is also equal to them. Means how much power they have. This is what Duryodhana himself is saying. And then Drishtaketu, Chekitana, and the valiant king of Kashi, Purujit, and Kunti Bhoja and Shaibya, the best of men. Huh? All these people are best of men standing on the enemy side. Then Yudhamanyu, the strong Yudhamanyusha, and the brave Uttamaujas, the son of Subhadra. So Subhadra's son was Abhimanyu, and the son of, and the sons of Draupadi, all of them mighty warriors. So Draupadi had one son each from the 5 brothers. Arjun had married Subhadra, Bhagwan Shri Krishna's sister, and their son was Abhimanyu, so that was one son. And then Bhima had married Hidimba, and so he had one son, Ghatotkach, from Hidimba, whom Ghatotkach also later on comes and joins the war. So this is how there were the 5 brothers and these 2. So there were 7 sons of the Pandava brothers totally, and all of them were killed in the war. Okay, they were all killed. So he's listing one by one by name. And so now this Maharathi, Maharathi is a title, and above Maharathi is Adhirathi. Adhirathi is the greatest, okay, means he'll have the maximum army under his command. Maharathi is one who has 1,000 chariots under him, 1,000 chariots, and he can fight 10,000 soldiers. He can, Maharathi. So he has got 1,000 chariots, so he's commanding that much. And then there is Ardharathi. Ardharathi means half, Ardha, half. So half of Maharathi is Ardharathi, okay, and below Ardharathi is Rathi. If you can imagine the modern, even in the corporate world, you know, so there is at the very top, there is the CEO. Then he will have n number of managers. Then each manager will have so many, say, team leaders under him. And then each team leader will have so many people under him, right? That's how it goes. That's how the pyramid is. So this Adhirathi is at the top. So probably Drishtadyumna would be Adhirathi because he's the commanding officer. So the entire army is under his command. And now he has got n number of Maharathis who have then these chariots. And then there is the infantry. And each Maharathi or Ardharathi, they would have these elephants, horses, each one, you know, so then there would be the horsemen, there'd be elephants that way. So Duryodhana is calling so many of theirs are Maharathis, means they're great warriors. So this is what he's saying. Now, continuing. Asmakam tu vishishtaye Tani bodha dvijottama nayaka mama sainyasya sadnyartham tan bravimite. Know also, O best among the twice born, the names of those who are the most distinguished amongst ourselves, the leaders of my army. These I name to thee for thy information. Question is, did Dronacharya need that information? Did he not already have that information? What is the point in you saying all that? He has named the other warriors. Now suddenly he thinks, oh my God, you know, I better start naming my own warriors. And even in that, now this Dvijottama word is important here. Dvija, Dvi is 2 and Ja is Ja Jayate born. So it's twice born. Now there are three things which are kind of twice born. The first is birds. Birds are twice born. Why? Because first there is an egg and then the egg hatches to give rise to the bird. So that's a bird is twice born. The second is when the child was sent to Gurukul. So what they would do is they would do the thread ceremony, and then the child was sent off to Gurukul. So that was Dvija as well. So the Brahmins were referred to as Dvija that in those days, because the Brahmins had the thread ceremony, and then they would go to the Gurukul for studying. So Dvija, so a Brahmin was called a Dvija in those days. But the final meaning of Dvija is one who realizes. He is then Dvija. So there can be any person, any woman or man who ultimately realizes her or his true self, means self-realization, one who attains moksha. He is called twice born, he or she, because he was born as a jiva, and now he's born as the consciousness. He has recognized himself to be the supreme consciousness. Here the word Dvija is used in the meaning of Brahmin. And when by calling Dronacharya Brahmin, what is Duryodhan trying to do? Duryodhan is saying, you're a Brahmin, and yes, you're a good teacher. You have taught us the theory, agreed, but are you going to be as good in the practical war? Have you ever fought a war on the battlefield? You have taught warfare. No problem. That is the job of the Brahmin, is to teach. And it was the job of the Kshatriyas to fight. But now you're a Brahmin, you're a good teacher, agreed, but are you going to be as good on the battlefield? How does he feel? Think. Somebody is telling you like that. So then he says, now let me anyway, O Brahmin, you may not be able to fight as well as you taught, referring to him as Brahmin. So, O Brahman, let me tell you the warriors from my side. My side. Okay, fine. Again, starts off with Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha Krapascha Samitinjayaha Ashwathama Vikarnascha Saumadattis Tathaivacha. Yourself and Bhishma and Karna and also Kripa, the victorious in war, Ashwathama, Vikarna, and so also the son of Somadatta. Now, what is the mistake here? What do you think is the mistake? He's starting his names of warriors on his side by your good self. Whose name should have come first? Bhishma Pitamaha's, right? He was the senior most. He was the commanding officer. It's like, if somebody asks you or asks me about the mission, do we start, there's Swami, whatever, Shantananda, who's in charge of US, and then there is Tejomayananda, and then there was Gurudev, or would you start with Gurudev started the mission? Where do you start? You have to start at the top, na? Whose name would come? The mission would not even have been here if Gurudev was not there. So when we talk about the mission, the first name that should come is Gurudev's name. You can't say, this, and then you go up. So here Bhishma was not only was he the commanding officer, he was the oldest in age. He was the bravest in amongst them. He was Ichamarani, nobody could have even killed him unless he willed it himself. Yes, I allow you to kill me. Now you can kill me. That's what happened to him. He allowed the Pandavas to kill him. He didn't. His name should have come first. But Duryodhan is now feeling guilty and trying to make amends. Trying to make amends to Drona, because he understands that, I've spoken a little bit too much only now. I've praised them. I've told Dronacharya that your death is standing there. I've called him a Brahmin, indicating that, okay, you can teach, but can you really fight? I've done all this damage. Now I need to make up. So you are there. You are so great. So why you called him a Brahmin then to begin with? So Bhavan Bhishma. So that is what is important here. Then he says, then there's Bhishma. It's like saying, there is Swami Swarupananji, Tejomanji. And then Gurudev was there. You can't say like that. Gurudev was there. Now there is Tejomanji and his disciples and Swarupananji and this one, that one, etc., etc. So that Bhishma name should have come first. Karna, of course, his best friend, who came later on in the war. He was not there in the beginning. Kripacharya, I told you, is the Kul Guru of the this. That was, it was a Mahayuddha. It was a great war. So actually, like Kulguru, Kripacharya would not have gone to any other battle. All the other battles that were fought, they were just fought by, this thing. Dronacharya also, he was only teacher. He was not. But this was such a great war that every young man was in that war, either on the Kaurava side or on the Pandava side. That's why later on that will come. So Karna, Kripacharya, Ashwathama, son of Dronacharya, I told you. Vikarna is one of the brothers of Duryodhana. So his name is mentioned. And the reason is because he was the only one that was gutsy enough to tell Duryodhana that you're doing wrong. By calling Draupadi in the court, you're doing wrong. Okay? Now, अन्ये च बहवः शूराः मदर्थे त्यक्तजीविताः नानाशस्त्रप्रहरणाः सर्वे युद्धविशारदाः. And many other heroes who are determined to give up their lives for my sake. That is the keyword in this one. Madarte tyakta jivitaha. These are the keywords. Armed with various weapons and missiles, all well skilled in battle. Rajasic mamata is caused by Rajoguna, I told you, by the predominance of Rajoguna. And this Rajoguna thinks everybody is just for me. Whatever is happening is for me. It is driven by ego and egocentric desires. So most of the kings, other than maybe Karna and Dushasan and all his brothers maybe, but all other kings were there for Bhishma's sake. They were not there for Duryodhana. Everybody knew Duryodhana was evil. But this is what Rajas thinks. They're all here. They're here to give their lives for me. For my sake, they are all here. That is what tells us Rajasic tendencies. Sattva will never say they are here for me. Sattva will feel bad that, oh my God, now these people are going to lose their lives fighting for me. This is how Sattva would feel. Tamas will not feel anything. You die or you don't die, who cares? Dhritarashtra. As long as I maintain my throne, anybody can die. That's okay. That's Tamas. And Rajas is to think it's all me. It's all about me. This is what Rajas will make you think. Okay, this is why we have to understand the gunas very well. In detail, Bhagwan will explain in chapter 40. But right now, with these three characters, we understand these three gunas so that we can determine ourselves where we stand and then try and improve. All right. Now, Aparyaptam tadasmakam balam bhishmabhirakshitam paryaptam tvidame tesham balam bhimabhirakshitam. There are two interpretations here. This army of ours defended by Bhishma is insufficient, whereas that army of theirs defended by Bhima is sufficient. Or this army of ours protected by Bhishma is unlimited, whereas that army of theirs protected by Bhima is limited. So this word paryaptam, first word in the thing, paryaptam is there and then aparyaptam. So paryaptam has two meanings. Paryaptam means sufficient, means enough, right? Sufficient, paryapt. It's paryapt, whatever is there. We say, okay, my house is paryapt for me, means it's sufficient for me. But the other meaning is limited, so small. So when we add a to it, make it opposite. So if we take paryaptam as sufficient, then aparyaptam becomes insufficient, means it's not enough. So if I say this house is aparyapt for me, it's not enough for me, it's not big enough for me. Or I can say, if I take paryaptam as limited, then it becomes unlimited. I can say, oh my God, this house is so big, it's limitless. I'm at one end, then I don't know what's happening at other end. So this is the trick word here, aparyaptam. Now, when we say, when he's saying this army of Bhishma is insufficient, when we take it as insufficient, and that's what he probably means. It's hard to judge here what he means. The reason he's saying that actually they had more army, I told you, they had 11 divisions, Pandavas had 7 divisions. But he's still saying that the army protected by Bhishma is insufficient because he knows that Bhishma's sympathies are towards the Pandavas. So what he's hinting here is that yes, Bhishma is on our side, but his sympathy, his love, and everything is for the Pandavas. So he will not fight as bravely or as great as he should, because he wants them to win. So why will he fight to the best of his ability? That's one meaning. And Bhima on the other side, oh my God, Bhima has taken these vows. Now, no matter what, nobody can stop him. So he will fight to the best of his ability, to the best of his ability. So even though they have a small army, they only have 11 divisions, it's sufficient because Bhima is so strong. And Bhishma is going to get emotionally weak because his loyalties are towards that side. This is what he means here. Or limitless, this is the correct meaning. Bhishma being so powerful that there's no way, and that's what Dhritarashtra had thought, that as long as Bhishma is there, and that was the truth, as long as Bhishma was alive, the Kaurava army could not have been defeated. That's why they had to get Bhishma down. And right after Bhishma, they had to get Dronacharya down. Otherwise, there was no chance of them winning. So this, the second is actually the correct, but Duryodhan being so rajasic, and then he's also not very happy at Bhishma because Bhishma is not allowed Karna to take part in the war. And the reason for that is because Bhishma knows that Karna is a Pandava. He's the oldest Pandu Putra. Bhishma knows that, but he can't say. So he says, as long as I am commanding, Karna cannot take part. He has to sit at home, sit in the tent. So this is what he means. So Bhishma with 11 divisions on my side and Bhishma protecting this, we are limitless. We cannot be defeated. And Bhima, they only have got 7 divisions. So how can Bhim be any, significant opponent to Bhishma? It's a double meaning, this thing. That's why it says Balam Bhishma Bhirakshitam. There is one army which is protected by Bhishma, our army, and their army is protected by Bhima. But then we don't know. This is what he says. Now, Ayaneshu chu sarveshu yatha bhagam avastitaha bhishmameva bhirakshantu bhavanta sarva evahi. Therefore, this is another stupid sentence that he has said. Do we all, stationed in your respective position in several divisions of the army, protect Bhishma alone? Did Bhishma need any protection? The entire army he could protect. So now this guy is saying, he's telling all his other people, other soldiers who are standing there, you protect Bhishma, because as long as Bhishma is alive, then nobody can defeat us. So please protect Bhishma, which was, again, there was no need. Bhishma himself could protect not only himself, he could protect the whole army. One takeaway here for us is, see, more than what we know, we know something, right? So more than what we know, we must know what we know it, whatever it is, we know it, but we should know when to speak that and when not to speak. And when not to speak is more important to know than to know when to speak. Do you understand this? He's speaking not only out of turn, he's speaking wrong. He should have known that this whole dialogue is unnecessary. I don't even have to step out of my chariot. I can just stand here and let other people do it. But this is what Rajas pushes you from inside. Let me tell you. Rajas is that guna which you will feel that force from inside. It'll push you to do things. It'll push you to say things. So at that time, if we know that Rajas is pushing us, we must have the strength to hold back. That is how you overcome Rajas. You get it into Sattva, is the power to hold back. And if our willpower is weak, then we can't hold back. And then we go say something. And then not only that, we say when we should not have said. We should not have said it only. And then whatever is said is wrong. This is what Duryodhana has done. And that's why we analyze his character as Rajasic. It's not just like they just said, oh yeah, he's Rajasic and he's Sattvic and he's Tamasic. No. And that's why I told you also, Dhritarashtra's attachment, even though it is to a person, because we say attachment to, as a general rule, attachment to people is Sattvic. Attachment to power is Rajasic, and attachment to inert objects is Tamasic. But when there is a predominance of tamas in the mind, then whatever that my child does, or whatever, my husband or my whoever that person that I'm attached to, whatever that person does, I condone. That's why it becomes tamasic. It's not sattvic anymore. Okay?
Jayaji?
Yes.
There are two questions on the chat.
Okay.
Sujata, do you want to ask your question first, please?
Yeah, because I was going to stop anyway. We can start with 12 next time.
Pranam Jayaji, wanted to ask, can a guru refuse to take one as a student? Like Dronacharya took Dhrishtadyumna as a student, could he have refused to take him as his student?
See, no, the Gurukul, he, first of all, how he doesn't know that this child is born to kill me, na? He doesn't. I told you, Drupad just kept quiet and went away. He felt insulted. He didn't say Dronacharya that, you know what, now you just wait. Now I am going to, have a son who will kill you. So number one, he didn't know. Right? Later on, it must have come out. The other thing is, because I told you, the Gurukuls were supported by the kings.
But he was not in the same kingdom. He was with the Kauravas. So could he have refused to take Dhrishtadyumna? No.
The Guru will never refuse to take a disciple. That's the same thing with Vedanta as well. If there is a sincere student who wants to learn this knowledge, the spiritual master will never refuse.
Jayaji, I think he refused Karna to teach Karna when Adhirath came to say.
Karna was Sutaputra, na?
Oh, he refused Ekalavya also, isn't it?
Yes.
Sutaputra, na? They were lower class.
Yeah.
They were only supposed to teach Kshatriyas. Kshatriyas they cannot refuse, but the lower class, that's why they refused. Karna and Eklavya for that.
Thank you.
Actually, Sujata, I in the Friday class, did you have a question? Because when I was watching my own video, I saw you raise your hand, but at that time I had not noticed it. Do you have a question?
No, after that you explained, so that was okay. Thank you, Jayaji.
Okay, because I realized it when I was watching the YouTube video. That's why I thought I'll ask you. There was
Leelaji also had a question.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. Who had a question?
Jayaji, namaste.
Ha, boliye.
Yeah, I'm still, Jayaji, I know you explained really well about the aparyaptam and paryaptam. Can you sort of go through one more time?
Paryaptam has two meanings. The word paryapta. Paryapta means sufficient also and limited also. So sufficient and limited are opposite, na?
Yeah.
I can say this house is very much more sufficient for me, or I can say, no, it's very limited. I feel very claustrophobic. This house is not enough for me. Both are paryapta. Do you get this point? This point is to be understood. Okay, that it is enough for me and it is not enough for me. Now, when you add it becomes opposite. So sufficient becomes insufficient, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you take it in the meaning of, so when I say this paryapta is sufficient, and if I say this house is aparyapta for me, it's not sufficient for me. I can say that, right? Whereas if I take paryapta as limited, and then opposite of limited becomes unlimited. So I say, oh my God, my house is like totally limitless. It's unlimited, like it's big, and it's, I can say it like that. So because aparyaptam word is there, and because that paryaptam has two meanings, this verse 10 can be understood in two different ways. One way is where Bhishma is there, so it is insufficient. Why? Because Bhishma's loyalties are towards Pandavas. Okay? Or the other meaning we can take, Bhishma is limitless. Our army is limitless because Bhishma is being protected by Bhishma, because nobody can touch Bhishma.
Okay, I
And
get it.
Bhima, on the other side, if Bhima has taken so many vows, that means there is no stopping him. So that's why his army is limitless, because no matter what happens, he's going to now fulfill his vows.
Yeah. Thank you, Jayaji. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
In real life, I'm just trying to put this thing together. In a corporate world, what happens is that how do we, this is more for people who are involved in the corporate world, how does one know when to start, not to speak and when to speak? Because in a big meeting, what happens is that you're just carried away with the whole meeting flow. And then how does one really, I'm looking for a practical thing. How does one establish when not to speak?
First thing about speaking is, have you been asked to speak? Is it your place to speak? That's the first determination. If you're not asked to speak, if you're not asked directly, we'll see that again, everything will come in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagwan doesn't open his mouth until Arjun asks him to speak. That is the lesson we take from there, that unless you are asked, don't open your mouth. Or then you have to be in that position of authority where you are conducting the meeting, then you have to speak. So that is your first criteria. Is this my place to speak or not to speak? And if you take it from the Vedantic point of view, spiritual point of view, what you need to do is develop more sattva in your mind. As more sattva develops, automatically that understanding will come. You know what? Better keep quiet. Better keep quiet. So either you do it that way, develop sattva, or a practical way, if you want, you have to first see, is this my place to speak? Perfect for grandparents. When the daughter-in-law is saying, I want homeschooling for my grandchild, the mother-in-law should just shut up, because the child is the mother's responsibility. If the mother is saying homeschooling is best, then okay, Baba, it's best. The grandmother has got no right to say that, no, you should send him to a private school. I will pay for it. Some grandmothers will say that. Shouldn't. Chitra, did you have something? Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Jayaji, this is Tanu. The question that was asked is also a question in my mind. And recently, I found a way of measuring, and it is by doing three things. So before speaking, see whether it qualifies as hitam, mitam, and priyam.
That is for satya, speaking satya, that is.
For anything, actually. In team meetings, like most of us in a team, except for the boss, are all equals. Yeah, we are all supposed to give our opinion. And I find that a lot of the times when people speak in a team meeting, I'm just giving you a very general example, it's all equals. People tend to want to outshine other people, They're not saying something new or something that's earth-shattering most of the time. They're just merely repeating what has already been said. So is there much point in saying this? And the reason I'm giving you this example, because this is like an example very recently from our team. It's like your speech has to be very measured. Don't talk just for the sake of talking. So that is the mitam. Hitam, only if it's beneficial, speak. And priyam is only if it is good. Otherwise, keep quiet.
Yeah, that hitam, mitam, and priyam is from Manusmriti. That's what Manu has said, that when you have to speak the truth, and I'll come back to your team meeting also, truth, then there are three things. One is, by your speaking, is it going to be hitam? Means is it going to be good for all? Okay, one thing. Second thing is priyam. Is it going to hurt anybody? By speaking the truth, sometimes you can hurt, most of the times you speak truth, you will hurt people. So is it going to hurt? And then is it necessary? So what he's saying is, if you think that it is going to hurt somebody else, it is better to keep quiet than to speak, even though it is the truth. Okay, then when you want to speak, then two things. One is it going to be the good for the good of all? Then okay, then you speak. Okay, but in a team meeting, it is not a question of talking satya. If the boss is asking for an opinion from all of you, then each one of you has a right to give your opinion. It's like a council meeting. You know, they say, okay, what do you think? You know, and we say, no. One person says, no, that is not good, that we should, startup money should be spent. One person says, no, let's spend money and go. So it's totally two different things that you're this thing. When you're asked to speak truth in a situation, then that hitam mitam priyam works. But in a team meeting where there's a corporate meeting going on, and when you're asked for it is not satya. Opinion cannot be satya or asatya. It is an opinion. Bhagwan will, a lot of places Bhagwan says, this is my opinion. Opinion can never be right or wrong because it is his opinion. It can never be right. It can never be wrong. Opinion is opinion. So that's why that corporate world is different. There you have to make sure that you are asked to talk. You have been asked, are you an expert in that subject? Then you can talk. And then those who are doing it just to show off, they're just doing it. You have to leave them. That's tamas. That's extreme rajas backed by tamas. That is what Duryodhana is doing here. That's exactly what Duryodhana is doing. He has not been asked to speak. It is not his place to speak because he's junior. He's not the senior most. He's not commanding. It's not his place to speak. And now when he has spoken completely wrong. And now he's trying to make amends. And now in the next verse, now Bhishma will fall in because now Bhishma had enough of this guy's talking. So that's fine. I was going to answer your question, Tripti, but I think we are running out of time. So I'll answer it on Friday. You wanted to know how to disengage. Yeah, young people. Your question was how do we disengage? But I can leave you with something that you can think. So you need to go to Tattva Bodh and you need to go to the Shat Sampati Uparati. If you read the definition of Uparati in Tattva Bodh, you will know how to disengage at a young age. That defines it. Uparati defines from what we know. There will be other methods which will come in Bhagavad Gita, but right now we have not arrived at that stage of disengagement yet. So if you see the definition from Tattva Bodh that Bhagavan Shankaracharya has given of Uparati, that is what needs to be followed for disengaging for young people. For Vanaprastha, it should come naturally. That applies for Vanaprastha also, and it should come naturally. Okay. All right. So we shall close now.